This is the third of 4 videos that go along with Lesson 4 of the Washington Pest Watch Invasive Species lesson plans. These videos will walk you step by step through how to make a simple map in ArcGIS Online using invasive species reporting data. This video will focus on uploading your dataset from the previous videos and customizing your very own invasive species map within ArcGIS Online. Let's get started. The first thing you need to do is log into ArcGIS Online. Once you're logged in, you should see a toolbar on top with many options. We need to select Map. That will take you to a page that looks like this. The first thing we'll do with our new map is save it. Go up to the floppy disk icon, click Save, and from the drop-down menu, select Save As. We'll fill out the fields as follows. For the title, type Practice Invasive Species Map in your initials. On the next line, we'll add some search terms or tags that would help people find our map. We'll use invasive species. Then, on the summary line, put a brief description of your map. Type Practice Invasive Species Map. As for the Save In folder, it should default to your folder. However, if you ever wanted to change that, you could use the drop-down arrow on the far right to select a different folder. At this point, you're ready to save your map. It's important to save your work frequently, especially in mapping programs. What may be a simple click of a button for us can be a difficult task for our computers depending on what you're asking it to do and how much data you're asking it to process for you. So occasionally, the program may freeze or crash, and if you don't save your work, you'll need to start all over again. Now, if you look at the far left of your screen, you'll see the Details tab. Under that tab, you'll find all the details about your map. Right now, it should show your map's name. So mine reads Practice Invasive Species Map and my initials JD. We're going to start putting the map together now. The first thing to add is a base map. From the tabs at the top left, select Base Map. Base maps provide the background image for all the other layers you add to your map. ArcGIS provides a wide array of base maps, and you're even able to upload your own. Which base map you choose depends upon the message you want your map to give. This is a concept you can delve into more if you choose to learn more about mapping, but for simplicity and visibility, we're all going to use the base map entitled Topographic. Which base map you're using is shown in your Contents pane. Now that we have the base map, we're going to save our work again. The next step is to add additional layers on top of our base map. Maps consist of a series of layers. Each layer adds different information to your map. These layers build upon each other to make your map more informative. For example, if you wanted to make a map showing how to bike from your house to different parks in your county, you could use the following layers. A layer with a point showing your house, a layer showing parks in your county, and a layer with bicycle paths. Now on their own, none of these layers can answer your question of how to get from your house to different parks. But if you stack them all together, you can see the different paths you can take from your house to different parks in your county. So let's add some layers to our invasive species map. On the left-hand side of your screen, above your information panel, select the Add button and select Add Layer from File. Select the Choose File button. Now you need to navigate to where you saved the dataset you cleaned in the last video. Left-click the cleaned copy of your data and select Open. You will now see the name of your file written in the pop-up window. Click Import Layer. With this dataset, we receive a warning message, Stay Calm. This is simply telling us there's a formatting problem or that some location data is missing from our dataset. This isn't uncommon, especially when using data you receive from other sources. People sometimes make small errors when entering data, or they might be using a format that's different than yours. So let's go back to our dataset to see if we can fix the problem. Minimize ArcGIS for now and open up the copy of your cleaned dataset from the previous video. At this point, we need to be like detectives and look for clues as to what might be broken or missing. Now this can seem a little overwhelming. There are over 1,000 reports here. So, instead of picking through each report, let's try to narrow down what information is most important. The error message from ArcGIS Online gave us 2 clues. The first clue was that the file may contain invalid characters, which means there may be a symbol or a typo keeping the program from being able to read the dataset. Like I said, this is a big dataset, so let's save ourselves time trying to find one typo and see if the second clue gives us a simpler option to try first. The second clue was the file may be missing some location data. That's far simpler to check as there are only 4 columns in our dataset that deal with location data. Location, latitude, longitude, and datum. The location data is completely filled out and has the same information for each entry, so that looks okay. The datum column is missing data. However, this will not prevent ArcGIS from mapping our dataset. Datums are a more advanced topic than we will cover here. They help the mapping program accurately display your data, but it's similar to our location column in that every data point on our map will have the same datum, so ArcGIS can still map our dataset without this entire column being filled out. So that just leaves latitude and longitude. Latitude and longitude data work together. Lines of latitude run from east to west and tell us where a point is in relation to the equator. Lines of longitude run from north to south and tell us where a point is in relation to the prime meridian. If we are missing any part of this information, ArcGIS will not be able to pinpoint the report's location. So let's scroll down and see what we have. So far, it looks pretty good, but let's keep scrolling down. And there it is. At report number 521, there's a gap in our latitude and longitude data. When these reports were made, for whatever reason, this information didn't get included. Maybe the reporter didn't have a GPS when they made these reports, and they forgot to add approximate latitude and longitude information after the fact. So without the latitude and longitude data, the computer doesn't know where to mark the report on the map. All it knows is that the invasive species is somewhere in Orange County, North Carolina, which is 401 square acres large. If this were our dataset, we would try to fill in those gaps. We could check our notes, or see if we had the points saved on our GPS unit. But since this is someone else's data, that information is not available, so we'll let the computer program plot as much of the dataset as possible and skip these reports that are missing latitude and longitude. This is a good lesson though. It teaches us a few things. We should always keep detailed and complete data. Working with data often requires troubleshooting. And you want to think through your possible options before starting to troubleshoot. We would have wasted a lot of time if we tried to go through every entry on this dataset looking for a possible typo, when the problem turned out to be a big, obvious gap in our dataset. Return to your map and click OK on the warning message. Your information panel will now look like this. First, it wants us to choose an attribute to show. Attributes are the descriptive data in your dataset, so it's anything other than the spatial data like latitude and longitude. Depending on what information you want your map to show, that will help you choose which attribute to select. We want to show which invasive species are in Orange County, so we'll keep the common name as our attribute. We must also select a drawing style, and that's how ArcGIS is going to display our data. If we select types, we're going to get different colored dots, like in the example image, for each category within the attribute we choose. So we chose common name as our attribute, so we're going to get a different colored dot for each type of invasive species we found. So for example, we might get blue for feral swine or red for knotweed. This is a great way to show the different invasive species present in our area and their spread. Now if we were to select location, we would get the same color dot for each invasive species, This could be useful if we only wanted to see where invasive species are present, but you don't need to know which species they are. We will choose Types. At this point, save your work. Within the Types box, click the Options button, and your information panel will now look like this. Here we can change the symbol shapes, sizes, and colors. We can also edit the species names. There are more advanced options as well, such as changing the transparency and the visible range, but we will not be using these functions for our map today, but you may want to try exploring those tools in the future. If you scroll down, you'll notice a category in our legend with a gray dot labeled Other. ArcGIS automatically bundles entries into the Other category once it has run out of uniquely colored symbols to assign. For example, our legend comes with a color spectrum that only had 10 color options, so only 10 invasive species were assigned a color. Our remaining 74 invasive species were grouped into the Other category. If I were to click OK at this point, those 74 invasive species would all be represented as gray dots on my map, with no way to visually distinguish them or to tell what the species name is. To fix this, you can click the Ungroup button. Now all the invasive species are added to the legend. If we kept them all, we would then need to check each symbol color to ensure that each invasive species has its own unique color, because ArcGIS will repeat colors once it reaches the end of a color spectrum. Alternatively, if we do not want a particular invasive species to show up on our map, we can drag and drop that species into the Other category. This allows you to focus your map only on the invasive species you're interested in. For the sake of this exercise and for practice, we will return some species to the Other category. Drag and drop any invasive species with fewer than 14 reports back into the Other category. Once you've moved all the invasive species with fewer than 14 reports into the Other category, save your work. At this point, we can change the shape, size, and color of our symbols. Let's go ahead and just change the colors. Select the Change All Symbols button, and then click the Fill option. On the pop-up window, select the top right color spectrum, and then click OK. Each of our invasive species now have a uniquely colored dot. Now we'll edit the name so that all the species names are capitalized. Click the name White Clover. Capitalize the word white, and click Enter. Repeat this, capitalizing the first letter of each invasive species label. Once you've capitalized each invasive species that will show up on your legend, so anything other than the species in the Other category, save your work. Now scroll down to the Other category. Make sure the box next to Other does not contain a check mark. Otherwise, all of the invasive species we set aside will show up as gray dots on our map. We could continue customizing our legend, changing individual shapes and colors. However, we only need our map to show viewers which invasive species are in Orange County, North Carolina, and where those invasive species are located, which our map currently does without any additional changes. So we're going to keep our current display. Select OK. We're now taken back to our original information pane. We should all have common name selected for our attribute and types selected as our drawing style. Now we can click Done. Your content pane should now show your new layer above the topographic base layer you added earlier. If you want to see your legend while in the content pane, select the Show Legend button. At this point, you have a basic map displaying your invasive species data. Let's save our hard work one more time. And at this point, you can exit ArcGIS Online or keep your map open and continue on to the final video where we'll add another layer to our map.